Licensed Poetics. I'm your host, Fanling.
Isn't there more?
Yay, you caught on. Excellent. That was the point I was going to make. I was thinking that instead of saying a podcast about books and art, as I normally do, we could consider swapping out that tag phrase because it's a new year and we are recording in a completely new format and we might as well create some new changes to go along with that. So I was thinking of changing it to something along the lines of a podcast where aspiring writers talk about books. Something along those lines, but maybe make it a bit more catchy. Because I really reckon our niche is the fact that we're writers or we are aspiring writers. Because looking back on a lot of the stuff we say and a lot of the reviews of books that we offer, we always take a very writerly angle.
That's true. Yeah.
So I think that's what we are, a book podcast, but our niche really is the fact that we're both writers. So it might be good to incorporate that into the intro. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, that sounds good. That'd be a good theme for today as well. Because I was thinking about this. We'll talk about it later.
Let's go back and do the placeholder intro again, yeah? So, welcome to Licensed Poetics, a podcast where aspiring writers talk about books. I'm your host, Fanling.
And I'm Derek Dow. We should do a bit, I don't know if we should do this episode or next episode, where we just like pitch taglines and they just get worse and worse.
Don't smack the table as you talk. Okay, we need to explain our new recording setup, but I like that idea. Going back to smacking the table, let's explain to the listener what our recording setup is. So where are you now, Derek?
I am in Washington, D.C. in the United States.
Oh my God. I am in Sydney, Australia, where I've always been. And previously, we recorded in a studio in Sydney. And obviously, both Derek and myself were in the same room, talking into the same set of microphones. But now we are thousands of kilometers apart and we're recording remotely, online, obviously. But yes, so neither of us are in a professional studio today. We're just in our own living rooms. I hope the recording setup turns out good. I'm sure it will. But just bear with us as we are still learning. I also want to talk about how we're going to be better podcasters this year.
Oh, I was planning on being worse podcasters. That's crazy. We had totally different ideas about this.
Well, good thing I'm here then. First of all, thank you to the listeners who listened to our end of year episode of 2024. That episode is already doing very well and I've received some feedback. So I think there's this really important idea of imagining the listener as a third party in the room.
Oh my God. So we're just becoming like fully Gen Alpha chat. Like, like, have you not heard this? You know how they talk as if they're constantly on a Twitch stream? They're like, chat, let me know if blah, 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 blah. It's the same thing. Same principle.
Chat. Oh, of course.
They're living a meta lifestyle.
That's very interesting. But I guess the difference is we actually have to live a meta lifestyle here on this podcast because there will be listeners. And I guess for a book podcast, what that really means is just always remembering that the listener hasn't perhaps read the books that we're talking about. So just always give context and read the blurb and talk around the book before jumping into a review.
Yeah, I mean that's just something we just got to get adjusted to, I guess. Because I'm bad in real life as well about this whole thing. Like I don't even provide context. I'm sure our mutual friends will know, but like I don't always provide context about anything.
Okay, cool. Now let's provide the table of contents for today's episode. Again,
table
very
of contents.
Good.
Jesus.
I'm remembering the third person in the room. Listeners, hi. I hope you're appreciating.
Say chat. This. You gotta
chat.
If you want to sell out, you gotta get in with the young crowd. You gotta say chat.
Hey, I like that. Okay, listeners, you're chats. You're the chat now. So chat, this is the structure of today's episode. We're going to do a bookish story time. And then we're going to do reading updates and then 1-star reviews of our favorite books. We're going to be reacting to those. And as usual, you can use the timestamps or the chapters in the description to navigate this episode. Cool. Now, let's go to bookish story time. Tell me all about Barnes & Noble.
Oh, it's really not that exciting. It's just a really big, it's just the size of it is like, I think it's basically the equivalent of like a Dimmicks or something. It's just a lot big. It's just big. That's all. And even the one in DC is not big. I've been to, because I remember like when I have like relatives here, and I remember like years ago when I was in California, in like the suburbs, because they have so much space out there. I went to Barnes and Noble, and I was younger, so maybe that was just because I was young. I looked around, I'm like, this place is huge. It was so big. And people would just like sit and read in the bookstore. Like I saw a guy finish a third of a book and then decide not to buy it. It's crazy. It's crazy. So I might just try and take advantage of that and not buy it. So anyway, I guess the book is, it's not really a story time. I don't have like a story about it or anything. But I've been trying to suss out the books in the local area. So where I am, there's like a Barnes and Noble that I was going to. That's kind of nice, but it's like not that interesting or whatever. But I've been to a few other bookstores. The one that I liked is called Lost City Books. And that's kind of like a local, smaller one. It feels like kind of the ones you would see in like Redfern or whatever. It's quite nice. And they've got like a big like LGBT section and like a lot of POC writers of color, whatever you call it. It's like pretty cool. And all the people that are up there are better looking than the people in the other areas. I'm just saying progressives are better looking.
Are you comparing that bookshop to bookshops in Australia or that bookshop?
No. I just mean in like, it's so funny. You can see in like the cooler the bookstore, the better looking the people. It's just a rule. It's just a rule. Like it's a rule of every bookstore, I feel like.
I need to test this out in Australia.
I think it's true, right?
I think sometimes JB Hi-Fi has attractive people.
JB Hi-Fi's not even this is not you're just comparing like different stores now. Also, everyone goes into JB Hi-Fi. What? Which JB Hi-Fi?
I meant the people that work there, not.
You're talking about the.
You're talking about the customers. Okay.
Yeah, they're just younger though.
Yeah.
Anyway, I've been going around a couple of the bookstores. My next plan is to hit up the libraries because I hear the libraries here are really good. So I'm excited to visit like the Library of Congress, whatever that.
Oh yeah, of course, that's in DC.
Yeah. So I'm excited to go to these. Yeah, a few. I've been told, and as I travel around the US and do a bit more travel, I will let you guys know which libraries / bookstores are worth visiting. But you've been traveling a lot, right? So surely you've got some stories.
I've been traveling, but I want to know more because in Australia, Dimmicks, I think they only have like maybe 1 or 2 flagship stores in Sydney and Melbourne that are pretty. Do you know what I mean? Some of the smaller Dimmicks are just more functional than pretty. So would you say Barnes & Noble is pretty or functional?
I think it's mostly functional. It's the size though. They just carry a lot of books. So in DC generally, like the one that I went to is in Georgetown, and Georgetown's just a pretty area. It's got a lot of old buildings. It's got a lot of like rich people live there. It's near the uni. It's a private uni. People are rich. So it's nice because the building is nice because it's an old building. I think we were talking about this before, but like DC just has a lot of nice buildings.
Anyway, I was going to say, I did go to some aesthetic bookshops on my travels. There is one that if you follow Licensed Poetics on Instagram, you will have seen before. It's called Librarie Avant-Garde. It's in a Chinese city called Nanjing, and it's also really massive. And it's built in like a repurposed car park. So it's
That's cool.
yeah, it has a massive entryway and then this long corridor with books piled sort of on the side, and you walk in the middle. And then this massive back room with tons and tons of books. And I think this bookshop in China is unique because it has received Western media attention too. Because when people create like travel lists of best bookshops in China, this would regularly make the list. But I find really funny that this bookshop really leans into the aesthetics of reading. Because
when you say aesthetics of reading, I feel like we should define that. So do you mean like dark academia, like a bit like spooky, kind of like, or like cozy sort of?
Neither, but I guess closer to the first one because it's a car park, so it's a bit dim and dark. That's what the space is. But I guess what I mean is this image of being a smart person, being an intellectual. Yeah, it's kind of annoying, and that's why people go to that bookshop to take pictures for WeChat. So that's a lot of what they do. And they have these photos of famous writers on the wall, like Murakami, Susan Sontag, Franz Kafka.
Like Joan Didion.
I don't think
Is she not
saw
famous enough?
Joan Didion. Joan Didion is not super famous in China for some reason. There are lots of Western writers that are famous in China. Gabriel Garcia Marquez. I swear, every wannabe intellectual in China reads.
But that's also Marquez. Every wannabe intellectual in the West. Like that makes no difference where you are in the world. You want to be a wanker, it's the same people. Right?
Yeah.
Like,
wanker aesthetic, I guess. Wanker aesthetic.
Yeah.
That said, I'm not hating on LG. It's still my favorite bookshop. I mean, I can't hate it. It has a great selection of books. I recommend if you're ever in Nanjing, check it out. All right, should we move on to the next segment?
Yeah, remind me what that is.
Chat, remind Derek what the next segment is. Yes, the next segment is reading updates.
Oh yeah, let's get to that. Maybe you start as I try and remember what I've been reading.
Okay, I have 2 books to talk about today. They're actually both recommendations from you.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I'll talk about this one first because I have less to say about it, so I'll get it out of the way. But if you have listened to our end of year review episode, you will not be surprised by this because I said I was going to read this book in that episode, and I am a man of my word, and I've begun reading it. So it is Sputnik Sweetheart by Haruki Murakami. Woohoo! Okay.
Is this where we would normally insert the applause?
Oh my God, I think we should totally do that. It's like when we give that elaborate setup for a book title, and when we finally reveal the book title, applause for dramatic effect. Sputnik Sweetheart. In that episode, Derek said this is a book that made him cry in 2024, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And it's the fact that they made him cry that really convinced me to pick up this book.
You were trying to figure out what, like, you'd had enough of me trying to dissect your personality. You were like, I better get one. Get one on him now. By reading the book that he liked.
Although I will say, at this point, I'm definitely more interested in the characters in the book than dissecting your personality.
That's a good sign, right?
It is. And yeah, I'm about halfway through the book at the moment, and I'm really liking it. So this won't be a full review. It's just, I guess, a reading update. I will give it a...
That's so good. You gotta leave that in. This will be a reading update.
Yeah, I also think that was great. I'm leaving that in. So yes, Haruki Murakami, obviously Japanese author, and the blurb of this book is that it's a mystery about love, the cosmos, and other fictional universes. So literary fiction, obviously, from that 1-sentence blurb. It's about, yeah?
I feel like it's just a romance, to be honest with you. Like that's how it reads to me.
It is so not a romance. No, it's about love, but it's not a romance. Okay, I'll give a brief blurb of the book.
Yeah, sorry.
And
we
then
carried on.
chat, let us know if you think this sounds like a romance plot to you. Sumire is in love with a woman 17 years her senior, named Mew, and Mew is glamorous and successful. Sumire is an aspiring writer who dresses in an oversized second-hand coat and heavy boots like a character in a Jack Kerouac novel. And Sumire spends hours on the phone talking to her best friend Kay about the big questions in life. What is sexual desire? And should she ever tell Mew how she feels for her? Meanwhile, Kay wonders whether he should confess his own unrequited love for Sumire. So I think it's very much a story about love. So A loves B, C loves A. And it is a very extremely writerly novel.
I guess it is a writer's idea of what love is, right? Like it's kind of that.
I guess maybe that's why I resonate with it so much. I'm halfway through the book, and so far I'm very, very engaged. I don't feel bored at all. I just feel that Kay is Murakami's self-insert. And Sumire is a better version of what Murakami wishes he was, like a more pure version of himself, I think. And then, of course, in his creation, he will make himself fall in love with a better version of himself.
That is so writerly. That's the worst.
It really is. Hey.
But wouldn't you do the same? If you were writing a romance, I would do the same.
I would so do the same.
I think I have.
You have done the same? Because you gotta love someone for a reason, right? And then what if they're just a better version of yourself, like who you wish you were?
Yeah.
For Kay, the book is written from Kay's perspective, and in Kay's eyes, Sumire is like out of this world, basically. But I'm still very intrigued about Sumire and Mew's relationship. That's kind of the thread that's holding it all together. I'm really excited to see where it goes. Yeah. Oh, by the way, I'm reading the Chinese translation.
Oh yeah. How is that?
It's a mistake.
Is it because it's bad? It's worse?
Let me explain. So I have not read the English, so I can't compare yet. So kind of before you go on, have you read any other Murakami books in English translation? No, I have never.
Oh, okay.
I have never. So for context, the Chinese edition of Sputnik Sweetheart is called 人造卫星情人, and my copy is translated by a Taiwanese translator. His name is Lai Mingzhu. Oh, sorry, his or her name, I'm not sure. And there are some moments in the prose where I feel the Chinese has an English feel to it.
This is what I was saying, right?
To be fair, I think it's because, as you said, Murakami writes for the English translation that this book would have that feel. But it could, to be fair, it could also be the translator. Like, it could just be the translator, for some reason, is used to writing in this Western style Chinese. So I don't know.
I think there is, and I've not read too much about it, but I think there's a kind of this common, I was going to say consensus, but there is a common opinion out there that Murakami's writing style is Western. So it makes sense that which is what I told you before, to be fair.
Yeah. I went in expecting it. So thanks for the warning.
Yeah. That's cool. Now I'm going to ask my dad, because my dad he hasn't read Sputnik Sweetheart, but he's read Kafka on the Shore in
Stop smacking.
Vietnamese. Oh, sorry.
Dad, did you get that? Did you get that? Tell Derek to
Oh,
stop
damn.
smacking the table. Sorry, your dad? Yeah.
Yeah, so my dad read Kafka on the Shore in Vietnamese, and it's very popular in Vietnam. So like
Oh.
Kafka, same as as in China. Is
Murakami's
Murakami
massive in China. Completely
same
huge.
thing in Vietnam, and I wonder now if I ask him, I'm going to ask him about it, and I'll see if he also thinks that's true. Like maybe there's a Western kind of style to the Vietnamese translation as well.
Definitely. Let me know.
But I was gonna actually say, well, I mean, we like it might be too long to just keep talking about this, but like, did you are you into the references to music and art that he does in his books? Because that's one of my favorite things.
I like that. I really like it.
I love it. I'm obsessed with that.
I guess the final thing I would say about this book is that I did not pick it up from Library Avant-Garde, even though that Library Avant-Garde totally has this exact copy. I got this off Taobao.
It's a beautiful cover.
It was so affordable. I love it. And it's a hardcover. So that is it for half of my reading update. But before I move on to the next book, which is High Fidelity, I want to hear your reading update first.
So I've got two books. The first one is Set My Heart on Fire by Izumi Suzuki. This is a novel about, well, actually, I'll just read the blurb because I know that that's what the people want.
That's what the chat wants.
And that's what the chat wants. The first novel from Izumi Suzuki to be published in English, and I think it was published this year or last year.
Wait, 2025.
So 2020. Oh, last year, 2024. A candid, intimate exploration of passion, music, and transgression. Set in the underground bar and club scene of 1970s Tokyo, Set My Heart on Fire tells the story of Izumi in her turbulent 20s. Through a series of disarmingly frank vignettes, author Izumi Suzuki presents an unforgettable portrait of a young woman encountering missteps and miscommunication, good music, unreliable men, powerful drugs, and disorienting meds. Izumi usually keeps her relationship short but complicated until she meets Jun. This is a visceral novel about mistaken relationships and the convolutions of desire, about regret and acceptance. Pulsing through the narration is the protagonist's love of music, a vital soundtrack spanning the Zombies, T-Rex, and the Rolling Stones, as well as underground Japanese psychedelic rock bands such as the Tigers and the Tempters.
That's literally high fidelity.
So
it's a very love romance focused reading update today, I think.
Yeah. I'm not that far into the book, to be fair. I think I'm about I'm only about like 40 pages in. But I basically got pulled in because I'm not a shallow guy, I promise. But this is the cover. And
okay, just
that's
for the chat,
actually the
what am I seeing on the cover? It's just a woman.
It's actually her.
So
this model is her. This is the author.
Oh.
So she is, and I'll just read the little bit of the. So Izumi Suzuki, this is the author, 1949 to 1986. So if you know how short that is, was a countercultural. 1949 to 1986. Was a countercultural icon and pioneer of Japanese science fiction. She worked as a key punch operator before finding fame as a model and actress, but it was her writing that secured a reputation, and she took her own life at the age of 36.
Oh my God.
Now, for some reason, the back of the book like compares it to Ursula Le Guin, and I think it's just because she was a contemporary women both writing science fiction. She actually wrote, and I'm going to read this eventually, a sort of like proto-cyberpunk. She has some like early cyberpunk style writing. It was heavily influential of the cyberpunk genre. So I'm going to get into that because I love cyberpunk. She also just happens to be a model. So she had like a really like tumultuous, as the blurb indicates, a really like tumultuous life. She was a hostess. I think she may have done sex work. I can't remember, but she had basically a pretty like crazy life. She was married, I think, for a time to a really famous writer or actor. Yeah, saxophonist. That's right.
I don't know how to say that word clearly.
She's but and so she's had like a crazy intense life. I'm really enjoying the book.
Okay.
And it's great to see, you know, we nowadays there's this like, I think we've talked about this before on the podcast, like the trope of the messy woman or whatever. And
yeah.
I think previously, to be fair, I think we previously talked about it as if it was sort of a new phenomenon, right? Like the way like
yes, I think
the Big Cheese or whatever that book was called. I don't know what it's called.
Big Cheese, Big Swiss.
Oh,
Big Swiss. Yeah, although I think that nude thing, that trend is more like bored women, like messy, self-destructive women.
It's really the same. It's like like women who are just like depressed. That's like, so she's been right. So she obviously like and it's a novel, but I feel like it's a novel. Like it's almost like autofiction from reading things about her life. But her life is like really like, it's about her. Basically every single page is chock full of like references to like bands. The main character professes not to care about music, but she comes up with all these things to say about music. Like she has all these opinions, and she's talking to a friend who's a music journalist who's dating a guy from a local band, and then she the guy from the band like immediately after hanging out with her friend. So she like steals this guy away from her friend, and she's just kind of like, it is what it is. That sort of like Fleabag style. But I'm curious to see where this goes. My favorite thing about it so far, I mean, I loved it. I like the vibe of it. My favorite thing about it so far is that I love the detail they go into about music. Because I was reading the book, and I'm taking usually I read pretty quick. It's taking my time. I like put on the albums they were talking about. I like put in the songs they were talking about. Especially these random like Japanese psychedelic bands from the 70s I'd never heard of. It's really cool. So that's how I think I'm starting to find out. Like, I don't necessarily like Japanese contemporary fiction necessarily. What I like is books about music, or like that's not about music even, just
references to music.
Where music is the language, you know what I mean?
Wow, that's beautiful. And I think, yes, I also really like when books just mention music constantly. And I think both Sputnik Sweetheart and High Fidelity do that. And even though I get none of the references, I still like it for some reason.
You feel fulfilled, right? You feel enriched. I think you should do that every now and then. You should like, because there's nothing to me that like creates the world more than like references to art within other art. Like you start like,
I love that.
Like you should create like or you should look up a High Fidelity playlist on Spotify. They'll have that. And did you listen to the music, right? And you feel like you're part of the world. All of a sudden,
but I listened to it afterwards, not during, for some reason.
But it's still cool, right? Yeah. And now you remember the book, and you're remembering the character, how he felt when he like played the vinyl.
Yeah,
it's awesome. Anyway, that's my reading update. That's amazing.
Now I'm really angry that you DNF'd American Psycho, because that shit is also full of music, like famously full of music.
But there's a kind of coldness to it. Like, I think I'll eventually get back to it, to be fair. But anyway, we can just move on. This is a great segue into High Fidelity.
Amazing. So High Fidelity is basically exactly the book that Derek just mentioned, just for a man.
Yeah. That's the other cool thing. It's cool because it's like a woman's perspective. There are so many books like, I mean, High Fidelity is well written, but
yeah. So High Fidelity is a novel by British author Nick Hornby, published in 1995. And it sold over 1 million copies and was adapted into a feature film featuring John Cusack and Jack Black. And then into a TV series in 2020 featuring Zoe Kravitz. So they did a gender reversal in a TV series as well. Have you seen any of them?
I've seen them both, yeah.
What do you think?
I've seen them both. The movie is much more pathetic. I think the problem is that John Cusack is kind of lame, right? So that works. That kind of works with the book, as I'm sure you'll tell us.
Okay.
Zoe Kravitz is too cool and sexy for it to kind of like it takes on a different tone. Like, you know what I mean?
I imagine it would, yeah.
Yeah. But also very cool. But so I like that as well.
Okay.
There was supposed to be a season 2. It got cancelled. I don't think it was well received.
I see.
But I love them both.
Interesting. I have not seen either adaptation. The only reason I picked up this book is, well, it was on sale in a bookshop near me. And of course, Derek recommended it to me. Just to give a blurb. This is Nick Hornby's first novel. Can you believe it? It's an international bestseller and instantly recognized by critics and readers alike as a classic, and helps to explain men to women and men to men.
That's perfect. Like, that's exactly it. And it's a side of men that, like, I guess when you think of masculinity, you don't think of that. It's toxic, but it's soft. Yeah, but it's like a warning sign to women who don't recognize that, like, you can be soft, toxically masculine. Like, it's a real thing. Yeah, I think it's out there now because of the internet. But like, this book is great for that.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yes. By the way, we don't write these blurbs. We usually source these blurbs from.
Oh, we're reading straight from the back of the book. Yeah.
Yeah, or the back of the book, of course. Okay, so the famous first line of the book, and the setup for the entire thing, right, is that, do you know your desert island all-time top 5 most memorable split-ups? And like,
brilliant.
Rob, the main character, he does. He keeps a list, in fact, but Laura isn't on it, even though she's just become his latest ex. So Rob is good on music. He owns a small record shop and has strong views on what's decent music and what isn't. But he's much less good on relationships. In fact, he's not sure that he wants to commit himself to anyone. So soon Rob is asking himself the big questions about love, about life, and about why we choose to share ours with the people that we do. Yeah, so from the blurb, you'll know it's a very music-focused novel. The guy owns a record shop, and because it's published in the 90s, it's mostly about 80s and 90s British pop music. That's the niche. And I love it.
It's so good. Yeah.
As Derek thought I would, and I did. I loved it, and I was pissed that I like it.
It's because you love masculine writing.
Why?
I don't know, but I knew that if you liked Catcher in the Rye, you would like this book. It's kind of the Nick Hornby. I think he started out, funnily enough, as a music journo. I'm pretty sure that's his background.
Of course,
yeah.
That makes
so
much sense.
I think that's the joke of the first line. If you know, I'm sure people are familiar with. I think we live in like a very review heavy culture. Everyone knows top 5, lists. Yeah, he has a great line about lists in the book, right? There's like, it's like there are 2 types of people who have opinions and people who make lists. I don't know if it's in this or it's in another like Nick Hornby thing.
Another one of his books. He's written many books. So yeah, this guy, he has lots of opinions on music. He's like, my top 5 tracks for this occasion, my top 5 tracks for that occasion. And then he thinks about his love life in the same way that, you know, which women are my most memorable breakups in my life, which is an extremely douchey thing to do, I think, and is really emotional immaturity. And I think on the grandest scale, the goal of this book is probably about maturing and like a man-child finally slowly obtaining a little bit of maturity.
Yeah, he also wrote About a Boy. It's like a famous movie with Hugh Grant, I think.
Okay.
And he's got a really amazing show. I know this is like, if anyone wants, chat, if you want like a good like show to watch. It's really quick on time. It's called State of the Union.
Oh,
10-minute episodes. It's 10 episodes, I think. 10-minute
I've heard of that
episodes. So you could, well, maybe it's 12. So it's like 120 minutes, I think. But it's about a couple that's going through marriage counseling, and it documents the 10 minutes they have in the bar across the road from the pub across the road from their marriage counseling place. And it tracks over the course of weeks of counseling, like how the relationship changes. And you can only tell from that 10-minute gap in time. It's really interesting.
So amazing. That's written by
Rosamund
Nick
Pike,
Hornby.
Chris O'Dowd, written by Nick Hornby. Really good.
Amazing. Fuck. Yes, so I love this book. And I think I should explain why I was pissed that I like it.
You just don't want me to write. You just didn't want me to be correct.
No, everything is about you. God damn it. I think it's the fact that it's yet another time I resonated with a young man's perspective so much. On the one hand, I don't want to apologize for it. Like, I like what I like. But I guess it's the confusion that pisses me off. Like, why do I feel like that? Because when I read it, I can see all the skill and craft aspects of the book that make it good. And I am focused on that. I'm thinking, okay, this book is good because it used this technique and uses that technique. And I think that's why I like it. Then how come it's always the young men that use these techniques?
I think you resonate with the themes as well. Like, it's also very he's a writer, and he's like a very writerly writer.
So yes, this book, High Fidelity. You know when a book or a film is good, it's good on so many levels that on every level it works, and it's so satisfying to like go through all these levels. So I think this book is one of them. And the reason it works is because it has such two threads that are so clear that are running through the book that you can just follow them with such ease. And it's never like hard to follow at all because the threads are so clear. Mm-hmm. And the two threads are love and music. And those are the two main threads of the main character's life. And then they sometimes come together, these two threads, and sometimes they go apart. And it's just beautiful, and it works. And I think it's a story about a man-child growing up. It's about the fear of death. It's also a breakup story, a really good breakup story. About being non-conforming. And I think it's also a story about just being a romantic with your head in the cloud. And those things are all just
relatable to you.
Relatable to me. But also, like, I've been thinking a lot about like why you care, right, as a reader. I don't think you should like go into a book. You would have your own sets of priorities, and that's totally fine. And then it's the job of the author to make you care. And in this case, he succeeded.
So. Yeah.
In this case, he succeeded.
I think he's particular. I think that's something that he's usually good at, because he writes from he's pretty unashamed about being like a British lad sort of guy, but he's very sensitive regardless of that. And I think that's like the kind of appeal. It's different than Murakami. Like, Murakami comes at everything with a very observably distant thing. Whereas like the character in Nick Hornby's novels generally is someone who's trying to understand things through a lens that's makes it difficult for them to understand things in. And I kind of resonate with that a little bit. Like, I can only understand things kind of emotionally through like movies or TV or books or literature. And so like sometimes I forget like to engage directly with something. And that's very much what the book is a little bit about. Like, to me, that's
I think
one of
I
the big
agree.
things.
I agree. Yes, this guy is very emotional, and he gets in there. And there is a great quote that goes, "When things are in the past, I can make sense of them. It's the present that I don't understand."
Yeah.
Oh, and I love that. I find that so endearing.
Yeah.
I will say, there's one thing in the book that I resent. Actually, not just one thing. There are some things.
There's a few, that
made me uncomfortable because
roll my eyes and be uncomfortable. And this is a question I want to throw to you, because if you feel the same way at all. About to get canceled.
This guy, basically says, oh, I wish I lived in my dad's generation because men back then didn't have the expectations of delivering orgasms to women and life was so much easier for them. Well, this is just obviously resenting the fact that men have less privilege and that women have more visibility.
Yeah, this is
How do you feel?
Like, this is effectively a novel about how easy it is to become an incel, like, for a man. So I think about that a lot. I like as a guy, I feel like you should think about this a lot. Not to like make this not about the book anymore, but like this is, I think it's a really good story about how easy it is to become bitter as a man, and then once you're bitter as a man, and if you don't want to blame yourself, the easiest thing to do is you turn around, you blame like the woman, right?
Yeah, going back to something you said earlier, reminded me of a quote towards the end of the book that's like, well, I guess when the main character finally learns that sometimes in life, it's not what you like that matters, it's what you are like. So
I love that because I, for the longest time, agreed with the character. Like, because I was like, yeah, but existing matters. It's not just the language that you communicate. Like, don't be a dick.
And then, but I love that even though it's the story of going from immaturity to not complete maturity, I would like slightly more mature, he doesn't diminish the immature side. He gives the character's love for music and his passion about having the right taste a very serious consideration. For example, when this is in the beginning, so it's not a spoiler. When he's in the record shop, a customer comes in and he helps them find the perfect track for what they're looking for. He's like, I feel transcendental. Like, these are my people, and I feel like the look on his face when I found the right music for him is like, I feel like I'm a midwife or a painter, someone whose job is routinely transcendental. And that's just beautiful. And then I like admire that dedication to art, I guess. And he's like, oh, we are this type of people that we consume things that make us feel all day. Like, we're not those people that just listen to music when we feel like it. We listen to it all the time. We read books, watch movies, watch plays, and then like we're just always feeling.
Yeah, and that's because I can't feel anything without those things.
Oh my god.
Well,
I
mean, I think
we obviously both very relate to that one. So yes, if all of that sounds fun to you, definitely give this book a read. Chat.
Yeah. I'm just going to quickly go through this one because I don't think we really have time. But the other book that I said I was reading at the moment is I Who Have Never Known Men, Jacqueline Hartman. This is very different than all the books we've talked about before, which are kind of my usual fare.
The outlier.
This is
I Who Have Never Known Men.
Almost entirely opposite. Like, there's no distracting music references. There's no, and I guess I'll start with the blurb. I think a lot of you, if you guys like readers, you'll be like familiar because it's like, I think it's really popular at the moment. Well, it was popular recently, last year.
Let us know.
But deep underground, 39 women live imprisoned in a cage, watched over by guards. The women have no memory of how they got there, no notion of time, and only a vague recollection of their lives before. As the burn of the electric light merges day into night, and numberless years pass, a young girl, the 40th prisoner, sits alone and outcast in the corner. Soon she will show herself to be the key to the others' escape and survival in a strange world that awaits them above ground. So I think this is actually an old
Is it
book.
a classic?
I don't actually know.
When is the first published? 'Cause that is crucial information. I always read.
Yeah. So I think it says the copyright is 1995, first published in France. Oh, so I guess not. But I think the writer is quite a fair bit older.
Okay.
Born in 1929 in Belgium.
So she wrote it when she was like 60, 70.
Kind of makes sense because I didn't realize that before, but it makes sense now thinking about how it's written, how they treat the passage of time in the story. It's very like,
Interesting.
it's a lot about memory and the past. And I was really bored 20 pages in. Really bored. Because the beginning is basically like talking about their lives in a sort of, and I guess in my head it like reminded me of, and I've not read like heaps of fiction like this, but you know, it's a sort of like Handmaid's Tale sort of like oppression. It is the men and the women, and like the women live in a cage and they're not allowed to touch each other. That's like a big thing, which is a cool idea. There's a lot of cool ideas, by the way.
That's cool, yeah.
And the main character can't get like can't get a period and stuff.
Okay.
There's a sort of disconnect between her and the rest of the women who have like grown into this sort of culture of being women, and she doesn't understand it because she was so young when she was put in.
And she's the key, right? She ends up being the key.
Yeah, so I'm not that far into it yet, but it's a lot about like, yeah, being a woman. What does that mean? I guess so far as what I can tell. At 40 pages, I was like, oh, okay, I'm starting to get invested in the characters. I'm starting to see like where this could go. I've seen a lot of stories about like, you know, I mean, you know, the sort of never let me go style of like, we live in a cage and now we're free. Like, what do we do? Like, how do we live? So, you know, I think that's it seems to be the direction it's going. I think it'll be a slow read for me because the problem with this book is that style-wise, it's not really my thing.
Okay.
I'm trying to read a bit like, you know, more differently. I'm trying to read more, I don't want to keep reading the guy story about being a sad guy who listens to music and watches movies. Like, I can't keep reading the same book.
Oh my God. Wow.
Anyway.
Okay. Yeah, so that was our reading update.
Yep.
Chat, let us know if you enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. I feel like that was very informative. And we're back after a short break. So our next section is going to be about us reacting to 1-star reviews of our favorite books on Goodreads. Well,
favorite is a strong word.
Well, we can say we started out with favorite books, but then we felt either disappointed or offended.
I was more disappointed by the quality of the reviews. Not gonna lie, I thought there would be lots of funny people like writing reviews.
What? The fact that Derek is constantly trashing the book community is a sign of how much he loves us. So chat, don't take it personally. But yes, I think we should talk about, so what we did was we each we had a list of books that we want to look for reviews on, and we just scroll through Goodreads to find hopefully funny reviews to react to. So I have not seen any of the reviews that Derek has selected, and he has not seen mine. So it's going to be a surprise for both of us. But overall, I think I found some hilarious reviews. But overall, the more popular a book is, the more funny people you're going to get.
And I think you've read more books that are, I think, like sort of part of the discourse. I guess we can start off with some funny ones that you've got, because I feel like I don't have that many funny ones.
Like you said,
if these aren't funny, I'm going to be so disappointed. If you think these are funny and they're not funny, man.
I'm sure chat will be on my side, so screw you.
We'll see. Let's see.
I don't think these are just books are part of the discourse, although they are. Also, they just have that political edge.
Oh, yeah, probably.
Have that political edge so that people are likely to have a stronger reaction. Even if they don't like it, they're less likely to just be like underwhelmed. They're more likely to be offended.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, I think to start off strong, because I just talked about how much I like High Fidelity, let's go with me reacting to 1-star reviews of High Fidelity by Nick Hornby. High Fidelity made me. This is a more mellow one to start with. Let's ease into it. High Fidelity made me want to bash my head repeatedly against the brick wall, or better still, bash the main character's head repeatedly against the brick wall. 1 star.
Yeah. I mean that's true.
I think it's so fair. Look, I think if I read this review immediately after I finished High Fidelity and I was in that high phase, this review would have made me angry. But now it's been like about a month and I can just laugh at it.
I think it's fair. I like the book and I've liked the book for a long time. I still think it's a reasonable I think it's a reasonable one. It's about a guy who's just needs to get his shit together. And how has he not gotten his shit together? He's like X amount of years old. Dude, get your shit together.
Yes, so that's one. And let's move on to the next one. So it's a longer one, but I think it has potential. Nick Hornby writes about losers and makes them lovable, but not this time. I couldn't stand the self-pitying little git, his loser wanker record store buddies, nor their ridiculous fracking lists. Reading this book felt like being trapped in an elevator with the pathetic Scrubs douchebag for an entire weekend. You know the type, the constant puppy need for the approval of every critter on the planet all the time. It seems like a charming vulnerability, but don't be fooled. It actually signals a pathological narcissist whose solipsism and incessant neediness will bleed you dry.
Someone has clearly dated this character.
1 star. Oh my god, you think so? I love how that is your first reaction. You read into the reviewer's personal life.
It feels like someone's saying that about me.
Oh my god. But I need to do an interview with my partner about like what it feels like to date me, because I wonder if men have the same complaints about women. Would you date a woman with this kind of personality?
You remember how earlier on, this is a callback, to talking about how everyone wants to date themselves but better?
Yeah. No, we did not talk about that. We said in fiction we would want that to happen, but fiction is not real life.
I forget that sometimes. I've dated people who like the book. And I think that's a good enough indication that, like...
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Self-pitying little git, his loser wanker record store buddies, nor their ridiculous fracking lists. God, I love it. Love it.
I was in an anime club, and that's exactly what it was like. I'm not...
in an anime club.
And I was a wanker who watched like obscure anime from like the 1980s. Like it was just the worst.
Baby Derek. Oh, I wish I had known you back then. Okay.
You didn't want to.
That was 1 star. Next 1 star review. You mean the book where a pompous sack of sexist shits gets to not only take a dump on his independent ex-girlfriend while acting pretentious based off his extraordinary music taste, but gets her back and somehow everything between them just isn't fixed, but somehow miraculously better? I call bullshit. In all caps. I call bullshit. The starred reviews for this are riot, celebrating the main character's manliness and telling men not to share this with their girlfriends because heaven forbid the secret will be out.
Yeah. It's there's a lot of stuff about it.
It gets funnier. Next bit is all in all caps. What secrets? The one of how to be a whiny wanker who seems to be the inspiration for John Green's male protagonists.
Oh, that's so good. That's so good. That's so good. There's a lineage. That's you know what is so true. There's a lineage of these. That's what I'm saying. So you like John Green. You like Nick Hornby. You like J.D. Salinger. This is a lineage of soft boys that have been like writing books throughout the decades. I'm telling
well,
you.
some people just cannot stand them, whereas I identify with them. Come at me. Want to be a whiny wanker. I just love the random dig at John Green at the end.
If a John Green main character grows up and no one checks this character, this guy is who it becomes.
Okay, fine.
And then if you make that character Japanese, it's a Murakami protagonist. This is what I'm saying. Like, these guys are menaces to society. They need to be stopped.
On that note, if you follow Licensed Poetics, buy me a coffee. I just released a poetry review that's basically a dedication to how much I love my friends who are all this kind of type of thing. So yeah, you're welcome.
The awful, this is, these guys, this guy sucks.
Friends, I know how you feel when you read these kind of reviews on Goodreads and you feel like that's a personal attack. It's okay. Just come to Licensed Poetics. Your people out here.
It is a personal attack, but it is a warranted personal attack. If you are like these characters, you should be careful about it. This is what I have learned. Just saying. Yeah.
Fine. Okay, I think that's enough reviews for High Fidelity. I think those are all amazing. Chad, if you enjoyed that, let me know. Okay.
Should I go with one?
Yes.
So I think everyone is familiar with Ready Player One.
I am. I tried to read it last year.
Yep. And I think you said you did not finish it.
I did. I DNF'd it, right? Yeah.
And so I totally understand. It has like a 4.23 rating on Goodreads. So maybe I'll just I'll quickly read the blurb just so that people know what it is.
Yeah.
The year 2044, reality is an ugly place. The only time teenage Wade Watts feels alive is when he's jacked into the virtual utopia known as the Oasis. He's devoted his life to studying the puzzles hidden within this world's digital confines, puzzles that are based on their creator's obsession with the pop culture of decades past and that promise massive power and fortune to whoever can unlock them. But when he stumbles upon the first clue, he finds himself beset by players willing to kill to take this ultimate prize. The race is on, and if Wade's going to survive, he'll have to win and confront the real world he's always been so desperate to escape.
Yeah, it's about a boy being a hero in a video game. And that first clue is where I DNF the book.
It was basically, you basically were like, this is shit. You were basically like, it was shit. It's just a terrible clue. But
it was too easy.
I obviously, I read the book. I think it's terrible, but I enjoyed reading it. But Ready Player 2 is the sequel to this book. Basically, days after winning Oasis, like founder James Halliday's contest, so that's what happens in Ready Player 1, Wade Watts makes a discovery that changes everything. Hidden within the vaults, waiting for his heir to find, lies a technological advancement that will once again change the world and make Oasis 1,000 times more wondrous and addictive than Wade dreamed possible. And with it comes a new riddle, a new quest, hinting at a mysterious prize. And an unexpected, impossibly powerful and dangerous new rival awaits, one who'll kill millions to get what he wants. His life and the future of Oasis are again at stake, but this time the fate of the humanity also hangs in the balance. Now, if you haven't noticed, that's actually the same plot as the first book.
I was going to say, it sounds a little bit familiar. Chad, I'm sure you agree.
Anyway, I read the book and I think it's actually horrendous. But there's a part of me that enjoyed how horrendous it was. And apparently that's a sentiment that's shared by many people.
Let's hear them. So let's hear the terrible reviews.
So this review is so long that I actually can't really...
I admire those like massive hate essays.
I actually think most of them are garbage, personally, but... This one starts, game finally over, for sake. That's the phrase that repeats itself over and over in my Kindle notes as I was slogging my way through the soulless, cash grab of a clusterfuck. It's been a while since I've been this irritated by a book. I got a huge kick out of its predecessor, Ready Player One, even if it often read like the reiteration of Wikipedia pages of 1980s trivia. Yes, it was trivia-laden wish fulfillment, but it appealed to our human instinct of rooting for an underdog against soulless evil. We knew the sequel was going to come. And by Hollywood rules, anyone could have predicted the most likely title, Ready Player 2.
I love that they literally wrote down for sake in their Kindle notes. Like, I'm just imagining them typing. You know the shitty little keyboard that Kindle has? Like, it's not a proper keyboard. You have to wait 5 seconds after you type each letter. So I'm just imagining them typing F and then pause and then O and then pause and then R and then for so, over and over again.
So, and this thing, there's a lot of complaints that they have, right? And I'm not going to go into all of it because it actually is super long and it quotes entire chunks of the book. But basically, their complaint is that this is the exact same story again.
Okay.
They recreate the exact same quest for more magical objects based on more terrible riddles and very easy to solve clues based in the same bullshit trivia. And it's not like a different time period or anything. It's the same shit. Where like now it looks more into like the character that James Halliday is or whatever, the creator of Oasis. Basically just complaining about all the men in this being like stupid nerds. This goes on to be like, this is even stupider and dumber and everything is worse than the first book.
Hey, you know what was interesting? This is also a young man's fantasy. Now, how come I hate it?
It's just because it's not a writerly fantasy. It's a stupid gamer fantasy.
Yeah.
That's the difference. It's just really seriously horrendous.
I think round of applause for this person who wrote the 1-star review and went to such lengths to justify their 1 star. I think in that alone, I admire it. Are there any other 1-star reviews of this book that you like?
The problem is that these are all so long.
Because it has so much complaint. They were so angry and so offended.
Okay. Oh, actually, I guess the other one that I have is also Ready Player 2, but it's so this basically that review, it includes a bit that talks about how much like how shitty the male characters are, right? And how like chauvinist and like fake and shit it is. This review it also gave it a 1-star review, took a totally different approach.
Mm-hmm.
All caps. Author caught the woke bug, which completely infected their boring apologia for being a cisgender male heterosexual.
What the F?
I enjoy the trip that Ready Player One took me on. The author transforms the sequel to a stinking turd of all caps wokeness. I hate propagandist uber left bullshit. We've suffered propaganda from the other side of the cultural divide from a clownish president who I've been working to defeat since day one. This guy is fighting Trump. He's this guy's on the right side of history. But I don't need this pinko crap pushed on me now in an adventure novel full of virtue signaling and instructing all readers, including young ones, that being a male or female is absolutely meaningless, that all people should have sex with whomever. Who cares what sex a partner is, our protagonist says. It makes no difference that in his virtual world, he has been a woman having sex with a man, he has been a man having sex with a man, and a woman. Who needs a sexual organ?
Oh my God.
Basically.
That's hilarious.
Why does an entertaining author, which, I mean, entertaining is a stretch, and so is author, frankly, have to shovel shit on his readers? It is too much. You can tell right away when a writer is pushing an agenda, shamelessly so.
Oh,
that's crazy to me.
The vitriol.
I was like, that's crazy. That's crazy. This is too woke.
You feel like this book is not even like structured enough to deliver any political agenda.
It's nothing. This couldn't be more nothing. If he's truly the centrist this guy says he is, this is a perfectly centrist book. It says so little. Like, I don't know what he's talking about. People can have sex in virtual worlds with anyone they want. That's true now.
Because
What?
I guess to this guy, virtual people having sex is just offensive to him.
His whole thing, I know, I'm like, I could see it. His gripe is that it doesn't fit his sexual fantasy. Because that's what Ready Player was for a lot of people. It's a sexual fantasy.
Yeah. It's meant to be.
I mean, to be fair, a lot of books are. Like,
books are about.
Murakami is like a fantasy too. But like, this guy is just offended that he's not represented in there. It's so stupid. Like, this is just, I love the difference. Like,
yeah. I love the all caps.
Oh, anyway.
You know a review is going to be good when it's in all caps. Okay.
All right. So next one's yours.
Okay. Let's move on to the next book. And I think the reviews are hilarious. But this book, I wouldn't say has that political offensiveness.
Mm-hmm.
The reason it has so many incredible reviews is because it's so popular. And it's a book that I reviewed on LP before, and it's Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. Yes. So I'll just give an overview so the reviews make sense, but it's a book that I really loved. It's one of the best books I've read in 2024. It's a literary fantasy about, Piranesi is a character, and Piranesi's house is no ordinary building. Its rooms are infinite. Its corridors.
Oh, yeah, this one.
Its walls are lined with thousands upon thousands of statues, each one different from all the others. Within the labyrinth of halls, an ocean is imprisoned, its waves thundering up the staircases, and the rooms are flooded in an instant. But Piranesi is not afraid. He understands the tides as he understands the patterns of the labyrinth house itself. He lives to explore the house. Okay, so I think that's enough to set up some of these reviews. So I love the book because I think the first half of the book is very much about this character Piranesi exploring this fantastical house that he lives in. And then towards the end, there's a bit of a dark academia vibe plot to it. And a very common complaint in the 1-star section is that it's boring. So this one, I can't help it. I need a plot, something I can hold on to. It slipped through my fingers into the 43rd vestibule to the right of a statue covered in seaweed. LOL, all caps. So it's a common sentiment about people saying, oh, why am I reading about all this 43rd vestibule, this second corridor, and this statue of a child holding a bird? Which is hilarious to me because that's my favorite part of the book. I think it's such a beautiful exploration of the relationship between the individual and the world around them. Like this almost religious angle of the individual and the creator, about the purpose of the individual is to discover the creations of the creator. So that was absolutely my favorite part of the book. Why are you rolling your eyes?
I hate that that's like a beautiful idea.
What do you mean?
I can't believe you would be born into a world and then be like, anyway, this is getting political. Anyway, this is getting religious.
Well, for once, I like a book that is not an annoying guy and you're like rolling your eyes. Anyway, this one is really funny. 1-star review. Very short. Weird and unforgivably boring. It's like reading my ATM receipt in Esperanto. Do you know Esperanto? Oh, Esperanto is a human constructed language. Well, I mean, all language is human constructed.
Oh, yeah.
constructed
Like yeah.
That
like
is
a
meant
fake
to,
one.
Yeah. Or that is meant to be like a...
Like Tolkien's languages or something.
Yes, but that is meant for real world use, but then obviously it's never going to compete with English. So yeah. This reviewer thinks this book is so boring. It's like reading their ATM receipt in Esperanto. Because it is a bit like that. You're reading all these fantastical descriptions and it's like a different language.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah.
And Oh yeah. This one is funny. This one quoted a blurb from the back of the book, which is, for readers of Neil Gaiman's The Ocean at the End of the Lane, and fans of Madeline Miller's Circe. I don't know if you've heard of that book, but both of those are very, very popular.
Oh, that's yeah.
I don't know if it's pronounced Circe or what.
Is that Song of Achilles the same?
I'm not sure if it's the same author, but like similar vibe. I think I've heard, but
like historical mythological fantasy, like Greek,
basically popular fantasy, right? So the blurb says, if you like those books, you're gonna like Piranesi. And this reviewer said, whoever wrote this blurb is a marketing genius because it's the only reason I picked this book up. But unfortunately, they clearly have a pretty significant crack problem because what in the ever living even is this boring ass garbage fire of a book, bearing no tangible resemblance to either of those stories that are so far superior they might as well exist on some entirely other transcendental plane of enlightenment. And I don't even like Gaiman's book that much. Jesus. But anyway, back to 1-star reviews of Piranesi. I find them all hilariously entertaining. And I think it just says so much about like whether you can connect with the focus or the goal of a book. For me, if I connected with the goal, I will never be bored, unless they stray from the goal. And for Piranesi, I think the goal, or like the way I interpreted it, was very clear from the beginning. And so I just loved when Piranesi was exploring the house. But I guess for these lovely reviewers, they just never connected with that. And of course, to them, it will be boring. I think that's hilarious.
Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned that because Annihilation was one of the books that I looked at like the 1-star reviews for.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of the same vibe. Like, it's not obviously as intellectually stimulating or anything like that. But
I'm sure it is. Like,
so no,
how you
really
take
not.
it.
So the review goes, I don't know why I was feeling so generous when I initially slapped a 2-star rating on this book. Perhaps I was willing to ignore some of my annoyance due to the brevity of the story. But whatever the case may be, it's time to rectify that error because overall, this was a pretty awful reading experience. And it's basically a really long review, so I'm going to summarize kind of the premise because most of the review is recounting the premise. So investigating Area X, just like an area of land, like, you know, which is kind of true to Lovecraftian cosmic horror principles. This
is Annihilation by Jeff VanderMeer.
Annihilation by, Jeff VanderMeer.
One of Derek's favorite books of 2024.
Not 2024. I think it's actually been before that.
Oh, okay.
The series, I think, was, I was trying to think of the series. But basically, it's about investigating Area X, which is this area of land, and which is, you know, true to Lovecraft and cosmic horror principles that is totally beyond human comprehension, and just trying to find out why it continues to expand, what it does to people, what it wants, right? But the reviewer, after like this long recount, basically identifies the key problem of the story as the story is recounted by the most unreliable of unreliable narrators. So almost immediately I began to question everything. But like,
that's the point?
That's the point. That's literally the exact plot of a Lovecraft story.
You can't trust the narrator.
There's a bit where... So there's a quote that says, was any of this actually happening? Or was it all some crazy nightmare? Or the ravings of a lunatic scribbling away on her notebook, sitting at her desk, staring out the window of an asylum? That's the plot of like a lot of cosmic horror. I don't know how like they ended up reading this book if they didn't like that genre of like story.
Maybe they watched the movie. The movie is quite popular, right?
Yeah, and I guess in the movie there's less of that. But to be honest, like the complaints are totally legit because it's like another star review is like 1-star review is like all dreams, they lose something in the retelling and are only interesting to the person that actually dreamed them. So this book is like someone you barely know coming up to you and explaining in great detail a dream they have last night. Snooze. And I was thinking about it, And I'm like, oh, that's true
Yeah.
because I love hearing people's like weird half-remembered dreams.
Seriously?
So I love
hate-
that shit. I love it because I'm smart enough to no. It's because
keep saying, continue that sentence, finish that sentence.
it's not hard to guess what these dreams mean. Like when people are like, "Oh, I don't even know what
You
you're
make
talking
it a
about."
personality study.
What else are you supposed to do with it? Like it came from your brain.
Disregard
You know
it.
what I mean?
Disregard it as it's an embarrassing detail that they've accidentally revealed about themselves.
That says a lot about you. That doesn't say a lot about
No,
me. That's-
you extending them to their personality, that says a lot about you.
it,
Chad,
it usually is.
tell us.
I think that's kind of the common like. It's from your brain. It's from your experience. I don't think that's contentious.
Chad,
it's not-
tell us what you think.
I guess my little takeaway from reading the reviews is that people like really want a reward, quote unquote, for reading a book. Like they want the idea that they learn something or closure, and like they want the plot to have meant something. They want like a reveal. Like, how do they get through their lives? Because
What do you mean?
that doesn't happen in
Hey,
real life.
I like those things in books too. I want to learn
That's
something.
No, but they're like, but you can. I think it's like to me, what I enjoy is like books are like sensory, right? It's a sense. It's an experience. It's not like didactic. Like
You
go to
are so
class.
Rob from High Fidelity.
That's the whole thing.
No, it's I want to learn something. Like I don't need the book to reach a conclusion in that way or a didactic conclusion.
You can learn something about yourself by reflecting on the book.
Yeah,
but,
that's
like,
what
And you can, there's so many things you can quote. You could be like, what's our relationship to nature? Like, if there's a reason the character is a biologist, right? Like, because biologists are, we didn't create anything, but we think we can control it because we can look at it and we can break it down to the microscopic level. And that's what Area X is to us. It's a microcosm, blah, 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 whatever. There's so many ways to be like, but the people are just like, but what was the plot? Like, dude, that's the wrong book.
Okay.
But it's the wrong genre too. So like, I'm never going to fault someone for like reading a book and being disappointed by the book. But I don't know how you can get into the genre and then be disappointed by like the book being a reflection of the genre. That's crazy.
maybe
But-
they're just new to the genre and it's the first book they picked.
Yeah, like, I think you're right. Like the movie that was probably more straightforward, and you can kind of take a very clear. Anyway, you can go back to you.
Fascinating. No, I just want to say quickly, after you recommended Jeff VanderMeer, I'm seeing him everywhere now. Like in like every list, I see his name.
The algorithm is coming for you.
Yeah, they're coming for me. And when I was in Hong Kong last week, I went to the famous Eslite bookshop, Chongping bookshop, which is a Taiwanese bookshop chain. They have a store in Hong Kong, and they have a little on clearance English book section.
Okay, so this is a kind of like a random question. Geopolitically, how does that work? Is a Taiwanese like
Bookshop?
company
Yeah.
in like Hong Kong, which is now controlled by China. So how does that? How do they do business with the government?
Good question. Good question. No, I think there will be rules. Like lots of international corporations are based in Hong Kong, and then they will just have to follow the same rules. Like everything's taken commercially, I think. Now, in terms of like China's massive list of banned books,
That's kind of what I was getting at.
I don't exactly know how that's handled. I think Eslite can still sell them in Hong Kong, at least last I checked.
That would be really interesting.
Although if things are changing, I don't know. But a really interesting difference is that I believe Eslite bookshops in Taiwan only sell Chinese books. But in Hong Kong, they have an English book section because obviously it's Hong Kong and everything has bilingual.
That's fascinating.
Oh my God, books are so expensive in Hong Kong. Like it's crazy. I would never have bought anything.
That's the cost of defeating censorship, I guess.
It's the cost of living the reader lifestyle.
You want your money for accent. Oh yeah, I guess that's true.
And also just Hong Kong is just a hyper consumerist place.
Yeah.
Anyway, they had a clearance section, which I was so happy to see. And I saw Jeff VanderMeer's little collection of like something about a bird. I don't even remember the title.
Paradise Sky, probably.
It's a little book, and it's only like $10, 10 Aussie dollars. So I just picked it up. And I was like,
Have you tried it yet? You haven't.
no, I haven't.
Sorry.
I haven't had the time.
Let me know how it goes, because maybe you might have the same complaints. I actually kind of agree with a lot of the reviews, to be fair. They're like, they're just like, oh, this doesn't make sense. It's like, yeah, it doesn't. It's a half-remembered dream.
I agree with some of the 1-star reviews too. It's just like my takeaway is different. Yeah, but I'll let you know. So thanks for recommending Jeff VanderMeer. I'm seeing him everywhere now.
All right, so next one is yours, right?
Yes. Okay, this one I think is so funny. Again, it's one book that I've mentioned one time on LP. And it's a tiny little essay, really, that's published in book form because it's so influential. It is Politics and the English Language by George Orwell.
Oh, to be honest, I find that so boring. But yeah, okay.
Well, you've read that.
Yeah.
You've read that?
I did. Yeah, I have. I think it's pretty. It's not uncommon. Like my school, I'm pretty sure a few of us read. Quite a few of us read it.
I can imagine that. Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, it's not. I don't think it's that insightful a book, to be honest with you.
The fuck? Okay, well, I loved it because I'm like such a George Orwell fangirl. Apparently.
Yeah, the random question: do you think you would like George Orwell this much if you weren't born in China?
No.
Do you know what I mean? Right? Like that's the other thing.
Exactly. Oh yeah, right. Because you're not born in China. Oh, I forgot that.
As you can tell from my voice. No, I mean like.
Oh no, 100%. Like when I read his work, I'm not reflecting on Western society. I'm reflecting on Chinese society.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the Chinese language, really. Even though this book is called Politics and the English Language.
Yeah.
Anywho. For those people in the chat who have not read it, it's really just an essay by George Orwell that criticizes the ugly and quote unquote ugly and inaccurate written English of his time and examines the connections between political orthodoxies and the debasement of language. Basically, he argues that when people, especially his fellow writers in his time, using overly convoluted phrases and talking in circles, that really lowers the quality of discourse. And he advocates for simple, straightforward, rigorous language that would regulate everyone to think more clearly and really be more honest and more truthful. So I absolutely love the essay, and I love how short it is. I think it definitely, if you started out disagreeing with him, you might not be convinced. But I just loved it. And then one star review that has 3 likes is just die.
That's actually really good.
Just die. And then 3 people like.
Was that from the official CCP Goodreads account?
And you know, the funniest thing is he did die. He died. Just like the reviewer wanted.
That's an inevitability of human existence.
I know.
What are you talking about?
Like, this reviewer, I'm so happy for them. They got what they wanted. George Orwell died. Just like the old gypsy woman said. Do you know that line? And that's from Archer. Hey. I got it.
Yeah,
I got
nice.
it. I got that reference. Nice. I'm becoming a screen girl. Anyway, the next 1-star review is very short. Like reading an old dude complaining about the usage of the word literally for 9 pages, complete with a fair share of liberal bullshit.
Liberal bullshit?
Liberal bullshit?
Wait, like liberal, like lots of bullshit? Or like liberal as in like...
No. A fair share of liberal. I think they meant progressive bullshit, which is hilarious.
But I don't even think I didn't get the vibe that it's like a liberal manifesto.
That's a great point. I didn't
what?
think that way either. That's because our position, Derek. Like, depending on what position of the spectrum you're on, like
I don't know what about being clear is a political stance anywhere.
No. I think in the end when he was like, oh, why am I advocating for honesty and truth is because of, say, these human rights disasters happening in the world at the time and stuff like that. I guess that's what would have been taken as liberal bullshit.
Anyway, whatever.
That's hilarious. Anyway, this one, I really want to get it in because I think this person must have been personally offended by this book. This review says, I'm sorry, but I did not like this essay. While I can appreciate some of the things they had to say, it came across as Orwell being a huge hypocrite. Also, as someone who just uses a lot of big words, this makes it seem as if I'm trying to be pretentious.
You probably are.
And then it goes on to say, this essay is way too long and I don't understand it or the questions that I'm supposed to answer about it, and I'm in a bad mood. Yeah, I think someone's feelings were hurt. I think someone's feelings were hurt.
There's a few of those. So the one that I have is The Vegetarian.
Oh yeah?
So
amazing. LP Book Club pick, The Vegetarian.
I don't know how much of this I can read, but I'll just start. If I'm going to be honest, there's just nothing that I liked about this book. I was counting down the pages until I finished it. I honestly would have quit about 40% of the way through, but it's so short I had to finish. Book is nothing, all caps, like what the blurb says. If anything, maybe the first 30 pages account for what I thought the entire book would be. Oh, I guess I should be reading the blurb of The Vegetarian. Do we have to? I guess we should remind
because the chat
people. Yeah.
Chat, if you haven't read The Vegetarian, you really should. It won the Nobel Prize.
Yes, and we plugged it so much because we were just trying to. The blurb is, before the nightmares began, Yonghei and her husband lived an ordinary, controlled life, but the dreams, invasive images of blood and brutality torture her, driving Yonghei to purge her mind and renounce eating meat altogether. It's a small act of independence, but it interrupts her marriage and sets into motion an increasingly grotesque chain of events at home. As her husband, her brother-in-law and sister fight to reassert their control, Yonghei obsessively defends the choice that's become sacred to her. Soon their attempts turn desperate, subjecting first her mind, then her body, to ever more intrusive and perverse violations, sending Yonghei spiraling into a dangerous, bizarre estrangement, not only from those closest to her, but also from herself.
Wow. To be fair, it's a very difficult book to summarize, I think. It's unlike...
I also think a lot of people so again, back to what I was saying before, the book is nothing like what the blurb says. If anything, maybe the first 30 pages account for what I thought the entire book would be. Instead, nothing happens. Really, nothing happens. Yonghei goes vegetarian as told by her husband, then her family traumatizes her by forcing meat down her throat. I liked this part of the novel because I felt for Yonghei's choice for vegetarianism and the fact that she was so passionate about it. And then...
Passionate about it? That's interesting.
No! This is like an entirely... So this is what I...
Oh, they thought this book is going to be about vegetarianism and being a vegetarian. Which, I mean, fair enough. The book is called The Vegetarian. If you go in with that set of expectations.
Yeah. So then the story stopped being interesting. Mind you, this is only about a quarter of the way into the book. Now we get to the perspective of the brother-in-law that fantasizes about Yonghei and using her in a provocative, I think they said proactive, but I think they mean provocative. Piece of art. The entire part drags, and as I read, I couldn't help but think, is this ever going to pick up? Perhaps delve into more her perspective and her struggle with this transition? Oh, man. It never does. The story ends with her believing she is turning into a tree, giving up food, not just meat, as vegetarianism implies, but food, which is ridiculous.
I agree. It's very ridiculous. I just love how you can tell that their expectations are completely misaligned.
It's so good. I gotta keep reading. Maybe I'm missing the point of this novel. I myself am a vegetarian. So it's not that reason. And it's not that it's an Eastern novel. because Battle Royale is my favorite novel, and that is of Eastern origin as well.
Oh my God!
I guess I interpreted the novel. I guess I interpreted this novel as focusing on a young woman making a bold lifestyle change in an unforgiving society.
I mean, hey, that is what it's about. That is what it's about in the first part.
And then, to be fair, they do. This is a sensible reviewer. I'm giving this book a 1-star rating, not because it's poorly done. In fact, I can understand the acclaim and critical enthusiasm, but I did not connect with this novel, and thus my limited rating. It is, however, a brave book about the intolerance of difference and the resolution of resistance. Many readers seem to be deeply moved by the language or empathize with the vast pain and suffering depicted, and I, unfortunately, did not feel drawn into the story. I felt like I was watching it at a distance without the full context or sensory markers to ground me and invite my heart to take part in this sad, scary meal.
Whoa! The hell? Okay, you're right. This is a sensible reviewer. I respect them.
Sorry, no. Sorry, to be fair, to be clear, this is a different review.
Oh, bruh. I was gonna go back to that freaking Eastern thing comment. That really got me. Also, what the hell is Battle Royale? Is that Asian?
It's a Japanese novel that they made a TV show of. It's like the originator of the Squid Game style story. You know how
okay, yeah.
People compete, people die. Battle Royale is the originator of that Eastern novel. But yeah, so this second review, sorry, I should have made it more clear. This second review is so great. It left me hungry for emotion. And perhaps this absence was part of the point.
Well, this seems sensible.
There are better, cheerful books in this world that I can read.
That is true. That is true. If you're looking for cheerfulness, don't read The Vegetarian. This reminds me of that Western therapy doesn't work on Eastern minds.
Yeah. I love it when people do shit like that. This is a different review. Being a vegetarian, this book offended me in some ways too. You will not die or become lean just because you are vegetarian. In my nation, half of the people are vegetarians and they are not all lean. But probably it represents something else, so I'm not that worried about it. Anyway, the husband is too much for me to handle. Solid DNF for now. I'm like, there are some really good, solid 1-star reviews.
Yeah, honestly.
But that one, the Eastern origin one, cracked me up.
Okay, the one that just said about being a vegetarian and going into it expecting it about that and then being disappointed by the disgusting husband in the first section. Honestly, I can forgive that. I think it's fair. So I think I should just warn the chat right now that it's not a book about vegetarianism. It's a book about kind of like what that review said about unconformity and also mental illness. And it doesn't really discuss vegetarianism or like food systems or even the choice of diet at all. That's not the goal of this book.
Yeah, I think vegetarianism is purely a metaphor, and I think we talk about it in
the book.
Yeah. There's this 5-star review on there that I completely disagree with.
What? Have you read my review?
Well, I don't know, but there's a 5-star.
I mentioned you.
No, there's a 5-star review that I read and I was like, oh, shut up. It goes, this was such an incredible book for the first ever LP book club. I mean, already off the bat, annoying as shit.
Keep going.
No. This is a stupid bit. I can't bother.
Mention the bit where I mentioned you.
Yeah. Discussing it with Anya and Derek made the reading experience so much better. We analyzed it to death. I don't know. But I was gonna say, actually, holy shit! I didn't realize. I never read past the bit. I didn't realize you actually mentioned my name on it so much.
I'm holding up a love heart with my hand.
Oh, thanks. But yeah, all I was gonna say was that the story is really about what is considered weird and then therefore insane in terms of vegetarianism.
Yeah, the book really is about the very unclear line between sanity and insanity. And I freaking love that. I've never seen it explored so well. Everything about that book is so original. Anyway, I think that's all the 1-star reviews I'm going to react to today. I had a lot of fun, and I deeply appreciate the people who write 1-star reviews on Goodreads. I think sometimes I would be disappointed or annoyed or offended by them, but overall, like, I don't know what you're talking about. I love this community.
I think a lot of the reviews are just as wanky as the people that hate on how wanky the books are. And
what's your takeaway from this episode or this exercise?
I like a lot of the reviews. I think a lot of them are stupid, but a few of the reviews, I like passionate hate, but I want it to be good. You know what I mean? Like, it can't be worse than or less interesting than the book you're shitting on. Because then what are you doing? Like,
I mean, this is mostly 1-star reviews of books that we liked, right? If we're doing 1-star reviews,
we agree with a lot of them.
Yeah, hated.
We agree with a lot of these books.
A different feeling, but maybe we'll save that for a future episode.
Yeah, we'll see. But anyway, shout out to the Goodreads community, and just like us, they are wasting their own lives by just talking about books. They're sad, like us, like the protagonists they're shitting on. And the people on Goodreads don't realize they are more like the characters they hate.
Okay. I think that's a good place to wrap up today's episode. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. This is the podcast Licensed Poetics, and I'm your host, Fang Ling.
And I'm Derek Dow, and we will see you later.
See you. Bye.
To be honest, when I was reading Sputnik Sweetheart, I was thinking about it, and I was like, you're a lot like Samire, I think. I think if you were lonelier and you smoked.
I'm trying to think, should I take offense to that?
No, it's cool. Like just a cool, like all she cares about is writing until she falls in love, basically. And then all she cares about is being in love.